And it is Tuesday, and you know what that means. That is another edition of Tech Tuesday. Again, my name is Christopher Barrickmo, instructional coach at Shawnee Mission East, and I am excited to talk to you a little bit today and walk you through a formative assessment tool known as Socrative. We spoke last week about a powerful tool that allows you to um, embed formative assessments in your work. When we looked at um, those tools, but this today we're just going to look at what that might look like just as an assessment tool in your class. We are going to look at Socrative. Some of you may have used it before or something like it, so we're going to walk through some of those pieces together. Really what we want to do by the end of this time together is show you how to create a Socrative account and look at how can we use real-time formative assessment in our classroom and during our instruction. I want to talk a little bit about what formative assessment is and what it is not, so we have a clear understanding of that. And then learn how Socrative and other formative assessment apps can inform our instruction and what information we can glean and take from each one of those. You may have seen Socrative or Kahoot or Quizzes. These are all wonderful platforms and they're all wonderful tools that we can use. But Kahoot is limiting in terms of they see the answer choices up there. They choose the color or shape that corresponds with that on their device. It's kind of confusing. You've got to transpose. You might transpose the answers and yes, it's fun. There's fun music and there's competition. That's all wonderful. But you're limited in terms of kind of what you can do and how you can get those reports and get that formative assessment along the way. The other thing about Kahoot is it's not self-paced. Socrative is self-paced. Quizzes is better than Kahoot, in my opinion. You can do a little bit more with Quizzes. It's a little bit more intuitive. But Socrative, when it comes down to it, is probably one of the better formative assessment technology tools that we have at our disposal. And I want to talk a little bit about what that formative assessment stuff looks like so that we have a full understanding and we can dive then into looking at Socrative as a tool. Let's take a look at what formative assessment is so we are all on the same page with regards to that. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, defines this in their publication about formative assessment as the frequent interactive assessments of students' progress and understanding to identify learning needs and adjust teaching appropriately. That's really what formative assessment is about. It's quite often not for a grade. Being a formative assessment is to identify the learning needs and then adjust the teaching appropriately. It's a signal for us just as much as it is for the student. And when we can look at formative assessment that way, it becomes much more helpful for our instruction. There are some key parts that we want to make sure that we're always thinking of with formative assessments. There needs to be a consistent use of formative assessment, and when that is used, it increases the student's belief that they can succeed. That feedback that's inside that formative assessment has to be tied to a learning target so they know where to go find that information and where to fill in with what they've missed or to celebrate what they already know. That objective data that's provided makes that feedback more appropriate for the student and for the teacher. The timeliness of that feedback is key. One of the beautiful things about Socrative is its ability to give immediate feedback and immediate reteaching for students if you so choose. And then that feedback must be actionable for the student. It's not just a grade. It has to give them a movement forward and forward progress towards more learning or relearning the material that they just assessed on. We're going to dive now into the tool itself and see what Socrative has to offer us as a technology tool. Let's get started. When you look at so many of these wonderful tools that we talk about and one of these wonderful tools that are accessible to us, there's always a cost involved. As my economist in me talks about the actual cost, the opportunity cost, but when we look at the actual cost, some of these things actually have really great features. To get those awesome and amazing features, we need to pay a little bit more money. It's always where instructional grants come in as a help for us. and really encourage us to seek those funding sources out to be able to provide these tools for our learning environment and for our students. So when you get to Socrative, it's just Socrative.com. I just want to show you, you're going to have to choose a plan. The free plan is wonderful. The free plan gives you on-the-fly questioning. You can ask a quick true or false question. You can ask a quick multiple choice question that you create on the board. You can ask for an exit ticket. On-the-fly questioning allows you to do a lot of different things. You get one room for your set of questions, 50 students per session. You can reuse sessions and reuse quizzes every hour, but 50 per session. There's some space race things. It makes it look kind of like a Kahoot, but it's not as advanced as it might need to be. But you can see the real-time results visually. Gives you a chance to get some reporting back in the form of an Excel spreadsheet or a PDF. You can share quizzes with a code that's created just for your particular quiz. And there is a way to align with state and Common Core standards. So the free version is wonderful. The Pro version offers you a little bit more. You actually, through the end of August, can get a discount of $20 off. So it ends up being $39.99 a year for Socrative Pro. But it's something to think about and look into. But for right now, let's just dive right into the Socrative free version. I've already logged in. You can see that I've got my profile set up. My classroom code, what I would tell my students when they have their device out, is connect with my room. And they can go to Socrative.com, they'll say a student, and they'll ask you to enter the room, and they'll type in teach connected, or whatever you type, or whatever you call your room. So if you take a look, there's quick questions that you could do. You can ask a quick multiple choice question. You're asking the question, maybe the question's on the board, maybe it's an AP question from a released exam that you have an image up of, and students are answering this question. And you can then see what those responses are. Once you finish it, they'll ask you if you want to submit a report or get a report back. You can ask a true-false quick question or a short answer true-false or a short answer quick question. Here's your question. It might be, what is the greatest Disney movie of all time? You can allow unlimited responses. You can require students' name, or you can limit it to one attempt in Pro, of course. But let's say we require students' names. You click Start. They'll be able to give their responses. Now, of course, the difficulty is somebody's going to put somebody's name in there. That might not be who that is, but that's a classroom management thing that I think we can all handle, and we can make our way through. But those are the create your own. Now, if I've already got a quiz, well, I'm going to start a quiz. Now, I can look at all of the different quizzes that I've already created. And if we take a look, a lot of these are my economics classes that I would use as entrance tickets or exit tickets. I might have pieces that are images that are a part of that. But let's say we're going to do components of GDP. And here's where now I'm going to choose how I'm going to get the information. We can go instant feedback, and if you go instant feedback, they can answer the questions in the order. They can't change their answers, and it'll tell you whether or not you got it right or you got it wrong. And it goes in order, 1 through 5, or however many questions you have. Open navigation allows them to change answers before finishing. They can bounce back and forth. You can still monitor the progress in the table that you have, or then there's teacher paste. You release a question, they answer it. You release a question, they answer it. So there's a bunch of different delivery systems we can choose. Now, if I choose instant feedback, it can require names. We can shuffle answers and shuffle questions. So the person next to you is going to get the same question, maybe at a different time, and get the same answers but in a different order. So you can't just cheat and give them, well, it's A, B, C, D for your answers. Go. So they don't know that you've shuffled it. It's a little tool. Not that you really want to be all gotcha with this, but it is a tool. Now here you can show the question feedback, and this is a key feature I'm going to show you here in a minute, because it'll give instant feedback to a student Number one, if they got it right or wrong. But number two, if they got it wrong, here's where they need to go to find the right information or to relearn that information. So then you can say, show final score. You can make all of those things happen. You click start, and then you're going to see something that looks like this. You can see this on an iPad. You can manage this from your desktop, but you're going to see a running total and a running analysis of how your students are doing, in this case on questions 1 through 11. And so this gives you a sense of what you might see. Let me show you a little bit of what that looks like from an actual example. If we take a look at what this might look like from a classroom perspective, you can see the students that are all listed here. You can see where their progress is. And I just want to point out, right, so this person, Alexis Donner, has completed the 5-question assessment. We can see what her responses are. We can see where the red is, she got that wrong. We can see the progress. Now the progress is 100%. Now you can change progress to an actual score if you want, but if we look at this, we're going to see like, okay, Alexis got number 1 wrong. And if we're looking down this column, Susan still hasn't finished it. Sam still hasn't addressed this. You can see progress of where students are. Once you have all of this information, you now know that your whole class is done and completed. And you can see on the bottom, okay, for question number 1, 89% of the question, 89% of the students got this one right. 88% for number 2. This is a free response question, so we can't grade that one necessarily, but you can see what student responses are, and then 70% and 75% respectively. So you can actually highlight, you can see this, but on the screen, when you're presenting this with students, you can actually just click on the question and they'll show you, not the names, but it'll show you the distribution of answers. Great way to talk about this with students as we go over test questions or test reviews in class or things like that. So there is a pretty powerful piece in this dashboard that we can see from Socrative. I'll show you how this looks from a student perspective. So you would tell your students to go to Socrative.com. They would click student login, and then here is where they would enter your classroom. So now it'll ask for your name, and so now I get the questions. You can see that I've got 11 questions on the components of GDP. Determine which of the following would be counted in gross domestic product. A new home constructed in Texas. So where is that going to fit? Is it consumer spending, investment spending, so on and so forth. So we're going to call that government spending. And you can see now I've submitted the answer. It's marked it incorrect. It tells me what the correct answer would be, but then it also gives me some of that immediate feedback. I can change what this might look like in terms of providing some reteaching for the student. And you go through this and answer the questions, and it comes all the way through. On the teacher side, this is what you see, just as I mentioned before. So I want to show you now, though, what it looks like when we create these questions and how we can then associate some immediate feedback and some reteaching in at the same time. We're done with the quiz, even though you can see we're not done, but let's say we are. We click that finish to get our reports. Now you can put it to launch, which means you can come back to it later. You can view the chart, or you can get reports. So let's say if we get reports, you can get a whole class Excel, or you can take and you can also take individual students as a PDF or a question-specific PDF, and you can save those. You can email them to yourself, download them. If we go to View Chart, it'll show us that data in terms of where our students were performing. If we want to see the names, great. If we want to show the answers, but it could just show us where we were in terms of that. If we go to reports and you go to launch, that gets you back here, and you can actually then get those reports kind of at a later time. But let's actually create a new quiz and show you what that looks like. we're going to create a new quiz, and you can either search quizzes this way, or if you're going to go to quizzes on the bar, you would click Add Quiz, and now you can create a new quiz. Notice you could import a quiz, and if you're importing a quiz, you're going to get that code from your PLC team and import that quiz. And so we're going to call this Disney movie trivia. You could align the quiz to a standard, and here's where you would select your subjects and the social studies. We could call this, there's all kinds of standards that they've already loaded in here. So if we go to the Kansas History, Government, and Social Studies standards, we can then select our grade. We'll call this High School United States History, and then here you can see our standards have already been listed, and we can then select something along that line. So let's say it's going to be civil rights and social change, so we're assessing that on this particular quiz. Now we can create our questions, and here's where you would create, what is the first Mickey Mouse movie? And here you type your answers. And now this is where you can type your explanation. And this could be what your page number in the book might be. It could be a resource you want to redirect them to, but you're going to type this information in there. You're going to indicate which one is correct. You can have multiple correct answers, but you're going to indicate which one is correct. And then you can create another question. You can create a true or false question, or a short answer, or a multiple choice question again, and you just build your quiz. The other thing you can do, if we take off the formatting, click on formatting, you can bold things, you can add superscripts and subscripts. If you are in need of adding an image, you click on the image here, and you can get your particular image loaded in there, and then they will see that image along with their question. But once you're done, now you save this question, and it is on your queue now, and it's ready for you to go to launch. And because I haven't finished this, it won't allow me to do that, so we'll save and exit. Now the quiz is saved. It's in there as Untitled Quiz, and now I can assign it. We can either download this, we can share it with everybody else, we can copy it and create a second version of it. But this is a really powerful tool to create these reports and this live feedback that we can get. If you remember what I created before, if you want to go back to those reports, you can go back to them under reports. The results is only going to show up when you actually have an active quiz. I hope this helps you a little bit. Please play around with it. Let me know if you have questions. But this is a wonderfully powerful tool that can really help us in terms of what we need to do for formative assessments. Just remember, formative assessments aren't necessarily just about, they're not just necessarily about these different pieces that we use all the time, like multiple choice quizzes, but they could be exit tickets, they could be, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs are wiggly, turn to your neighbor, group answers, think, pair, share, bell work, four corners, a game show, writing. There's lots of different quick informal assessments that we can do, but the fact is we need to do them so that we can get that real-time feedback, so that we can change instruction as a result. And I hope Socrative gives you an opportunity to use this in your classroom. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on Tech Tuesday. I'm out.